weekend, families? Just before Pastor Eddie comes and give us the second half, the second program for the day, I just want to invite him to come up to the front because I will put him on the spot for a little bit. Come up, Pastor Eddie. Because a lot of our church families, it's their first time to meet you and to hear you preach, I want to ask you 3 questions.
Sure.
All right, first one, Pastor Eddie. What are 3 words that describe you?
3 words that describe me.
Well, that's Yvonne.
3 words that describe me. Committed. Generous. And loyal.
Yvonne, you agree? What is something you wish you knew back when you were a young person?
I wish when I was younger, I wish I knew that I was okay as I was. I spent a lot of time just trying to be something I wasn't. And I wish I just knew, no, you're good. Don't worry about it, you're good.
Last one, Pastor Eddie. What is one thing that you're very passionate about as a follower of Christ that you would like our young people to also be passionate about?
I'm passionate about young people knowing that your story is valuable. There are no wasted stories in the kingdom. There are no written off stories in the kingdom. I remember when I came back to church at 25, and I came back just very broken. And I remember God speaking to me as a 25-year-old, saying, as I started the walk, saying, no matter who writes you off, you remind them and you remind yourself that I write with a bigger pen. Whenever anybody writes you off, you remind them that I write with a bigger pen. And and I want young people to know God writes with a bigger pen. There are, if I'm here, everybody's good. If I can be here, everybody is all right. Yeah, if I can be here.
Thank you, Pastor Eddie. May God's Spirit speak through you.
Well, I don't plan on doing a lot of speaking this afternoon. I'm hoping that you all will do the speaking, and together we'll arrive at something. This afternoon's program is entitled The Things We Know, and that's what we're going to discuss. We're going to discuss the things we know, and you're going to discuss it. So you're going to be breaking into groups. You're going to be breaking into small groups. I'm going to ask you some questions. You're going to come up with some answers. You're going to write the answers in your phone, and then you're going to feed back to the rest of the groups, and then we'll discuss that. Is that okay? Yes. All right. Because I see you looking at me like, yeah, no, you speak, man, you speak. No. There's enough wisdom in the room. In the multitude of counsel, wisdom is established. So, this is called The Things We Know. And it's from a series I call the God Church and Faith Culture. The God, Faith and Culture series. You know what I mean? I have to get my brain together because my belly's full. You know what I mean? As a matter of fact, everybody stand to your feet. Everybody stretch your arms out like this. Everybody turn to the left. Everybody turn to the right. Everybody turn back to the left. Everybody turn back to the right. Put your hands in front, clap 3 times. All right, sit down now, sit down. I don't know what I was doing there. I don't know what I was doing. But that's what I want to discuss. That's what I want to discuss. I want us to think about the 3 places where our lives take place. So, this is what we're going to do. I want you to break up into groups. It could be like, yeah, there's a group, you know, groups of 5, groups of 6, but break up into groups. And this is the questions we're going to be discussing. As believers, as Bidwill Church, as believers and followers of Jesus, as believers in 2025, what can we confidently say we know when speaking about God, when speaking about church, and when speaking about culture? Now, I don't want academic answers. I'm asking you to speak out of your own lived experience when talking about all 3. So, go. Break into some groups. So stand up. So everyone knows you already. So stand up. So these are your 3. They're all your best answers. Yeah. I'm ready to have more than 3. Believe me, everybody had more than 3. So pick your favorite 3. Yeah.
We said he's unchangeable.
Unchangeable.
He's forgiving.
Forgiving.
And he's our creator.
Ooh, all right then. Unchanging, forgiving, and our creator. Beautiful. Let's go to this group over here. Some of them you may repeat so that you can pick some there.
Well, we had more than 3.
All right.
And that's for sure. But we have, I believe it's faithful.
Faithful.
Yeah. And merciful. And loving.
Loving. All right. Beautiful. All right. I'll tell you what. I'm going to give you, take one more. I'll give everyone 4. And I'll let you do a 4th as well. So pick up.
He's a God that provides.
Provided God, yes. All right, go back to this group here, son. And let's get one more to make 4 with them.
We said that we are on his image.
All right. I like that. We are all his image. Have you guys want to... All right, come to your group. This group is old school, like we're writing it down. That's what I'm talking about.
We said that he's loving, he's our Savior, and he's everlasting loving, and he's the truth and the light in the world.
I love that. And this group here, our final group. You're holding the phone, you're not going to tell me.
Okay. So our group said that God has many names. So he's a protector, healer, caring, and helpful.
I love that. It's beautiful that all the answers, you can sit them out. You're gonna go again next one. It's beautiful that all the answers that you've given, come from things that you know from the Bible, and then come from things that you've experienced personally about God. Here are my 4 in light of all that you've said. These are the things that we do know. Number 1, that divine intentionality. And intentionality just means that God means to do. When God says let there be, he meant to create the world. When he said let us make them in our image, he meant to do that. Divine intentionality in the scripture is consistent and it's persistent. That means you constantly see. The beautiful image of God's intentionality was when he said, let us make them in our image. And then when they fall, where is the beautiful intentionality? When Adam and Eve fall, the beautiful intentionality is that he goes looking for them. And he says, where are you? And then when they couldn't fix it, remember? They realized they were naked and they tried to cover it up. Did it work? No. Because they were hiding when God found them. But what did God do? God fixed it. God covered them. And so you constantly see this picture all the way through the Bible about God, that his intentionality is consistent and is persistent. Everywhere you turn around, God is there. The second thing we know, in light of everything that you've said, is this. God has not at any time separated himself from the human story. God isn't like the baby daddy who has creation. Oh, who did that, me? Did I do that? God is not like the baby daddy who has the baby and he runs off. Did God run off? No. Humanity ran off. And then what did God do? God went looking for them, didn't he? Yeah, he went looking for them. So God does not separate himself from us. God chooses all the time. We love. All right, this thing I met the mad one. Well, we try to figure this out. God has at no time separated himself from the human story. At no time has he separated himself from us in the human story. The third thing we know about God is this. To fully explain God is to invent God. Think about water. Just think about water. Yeah? We love water. We drink water. We swim in water. We wash with water. We cleanse with water. Water makes up what percentage of the human body? 75% of the human body. You know what I mean? Water is necessary to the survival of living species. We worship someone. We worship a being who thought of water in their mind when, yeah, boy, that looks good. And then said, let it be. Now you want to say that, you want to fully explain who that kind of God is. Think about the human finger, a thumbprint. It's crazy that there are no two thumbprints the same for everybody in this world. My mother, she passed in 2020. She was 95 years old. You know what I mean? Soldier for Jesus. Passed in her sleep. You know. She didn't want to live to be 95. She was good to die at 90. But we were selfish. We're like, no, Lord, don't make her die. Make her live still. You know, and honestly, she was ready for Jesus at 90. When she was 90, I was recording her life story. I spent 2 years, 2019 and 2020. Not 2019. When she turned 90, I was recording her life story. So that was 2014 and 2015. Anyway, I was recording the story of my mum's life during the early days with my father. My father had 10 children with my mum. 10 children. Left my mother when I was 5 years old. Left her with the last 5 children to raise by herself. 4 boys, 1 girl. And I'm the youngest in my whole family. My mother was telling me the stories of the early days. My mother was born 1925. Exactly. My mother was born 1925. And she was telling me about the early days with my dad. You know what I mean? In the recording of the story, she's telling me about the early days, like the first 3-4 years of the marriage. You know, the difficulties and dad working and being away. We were from Grenada, he would go away to Venezuela, he'd be working for a long time and coming back, and the loneliness that she felt. And, you know, it's interesting. Even though my dad left my mother and the difficulty she had, my mom never spoke bad of my father. She said, if you want to know who your father is, you go see your father. But it never came out of her mouth. One time she was speaking about my dad, and it literally went like this. You know, there was one time with your father when... It's okay, don't worry. And then she just went on to another story. And in that moment, Anna, for me, it was such a teachable moment. She was about to tell me something, and she said, no, it's okay. And she moved on. And it said three things to me. It said three things to me. It said, number one, you do not have the capacity to hear what I wanted to tell you. Number two, you know something, that's just between me and your father. And then number three, boy, that's none of your business. And I thought about that with just me as a child thinking about my parents and thinking I know everything about my parents. And Rhea is convinced she knows everything about her mom and dad. You know what I mean? And I'm like a DJ. Rhea will be like, Dad, tell me about growing up with you and Uncle Simon and my uncles. Tell me about the stories growing up. And I'll be like an old DJ playing vinyls. I'll be going through the record selection. No, I can't tell you that. No, I can't tell you that. Oh, yeah, I'll tell you that. And I put it on. And it's the same with God. You honestly think we know everything about God. You have to allow God space to be God. Allow him space to be God. To fully explain God is to invent God. So with all the things that you know, these are the things we know. Divine intentionality is consistent. God is consistent and persistent. We do know that God doesn't separate himself from us. We do know that to fully explain God is to invent God. And lastly, the thing we know about God is this. God is predictably unpredictable. Isn't he? You think God is going to choose this people and he chooses that people. You think this person is going to be God's prophet and that's God's prophet. You think God's going to speak through this man and he speaks through this woman. You think God is going to speak through this woman and he speaks through this child. You think that his child is going to be born in Jerusalem, his child is born in Bethlehem. You think the child is going to grow up in Bethlehem, the child grows up in the ghettos of Nazareth. God is unpredictable. And that's good. Because that means that we can't nail God down ever to just one thing that we think in our mind. That God is going to be this way. God is going to work this way. God is only going to speak this way. So those are the things we know about God. So, have we got it back? Did we get it back? Still not? No. So, let's get into our groups again. And this time, I want you to write down 4 things that we definitely know about church. So discuss. What are the 4 things we know about church? Hey, hold on. Before you discuss, be kind. Be kind. All right, discuss. 4 things we know about church. All right, while we play with technology, let's get back to your answers. So which group do you want to start with first? Start with this group? All right then, go on. Oh, let's work the other way around. Let's start with this group. Yeah. So what can we safely say we know about church? They're landing you right.
4 again.
Give us your 4.
So our group has said the church is a hospital for sinners. Mm-hmm. The church is fellowship and community.
Yeah.
Helping us to grow and others grow, and we are the bride to God.
All right. Okay, beautiful. Let's go to this group over here. Give us your 4. The church.
All right, we're going to be tricky and say the first point is church is the city of refuge.
A city of refuge?
Yeah.
Hey, I like that.
And then...
I've heard that before.
but they heard us, I think so.
I think so.
we have just an extra one that we say that, this is how we define church. The typical church is a building and with members.
Yes.
Yeah.
Church is a building.
And the rest are all the same.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
We said church is a place where we worship. Church is people, church is family, and church is united.
A place where we worship, church is a family, church is people, and church is united. Hey, you covered it all. I love that.
My group and I said the church is the house of God, a place of worship where we work together in one and where we get to know about God.
Hey. And you were kind, and that is beautiful. Which one? Let's go now. How many people were born into how many people here were born into Christian families, born and grew up in the church? How many people came into the church at a period of time? My family was Anglican. My family was Anglican. That's why my family was Anglican. And so we grew up. My mom was Anglican, my dad was Anglican. So my dad and his brothers are all named after popes. One's name was Francis, one's name was Urban, one's name was Cyprian, my dad's name was Ignatius Charles, but they called him Charles. All right, so just scroll up here. All right then, okay. I like this. All right. So church, we will not be defeated. We will not be defeated by technology. So what can we say we know about church? Well, this is one of the things that we know. Yeah, spirituality, the idea of what is spiritual, is no longer religiously and institutionally defined. What do I mean when I say that? The church alone doesn't get to define what is spiritual and what's not spiritual. We live in a culture where people find different things spiritual. They'll go on walks because they find it spiritual. They'll give money to causes because they find it spiritual. The idea of spiritual is something which is spiritual is anything that gives meaning and gives depth in life. That's the idea of spiritual. That's the secular idea of spiritual. For us, as believers in Christ, we believe that spirituality is defined not by things, but by a person. We see spirituality being defined by a person, and that person is Jesus Christ. And Jesus defines what it means and what it looks like to be spiritual. What it means to be connected to God. What it means to be connected to humanity. What it means to be connected to the world around you. But it's important that we understand as a church that when we go into the culture and we're talking about spiritual, we're talking to people that look at spirituality in other ways other than us. Does that make sense? This is the second thing that we know. That the church is not a gathering of who's right. It's a gathering of who's willing. And I'm saying that to us as Adventists. So you know we love a good fight. Come on, man. We love to fight. Not with each other, but we love to fight with other denominations. You're wrong, I'm right. True. How many of you as husbands know you can be right and win the argument with your wife, but boy, the rest of your life is going to be wrong? What? Lord have mercy, man. Yeah, bed with that woman. You're sleeping with one eye open, boy. What? You know it's true. That's why your wives ain't saying nothing. They're like, yeah, we can be so right that we're wrong. And to be right at any cost is to be wrong in every currency. Oh, that was good, wasn't it? I like that one. Write that one down. Yeah, if you put it on social media, you better tag my name next to it, you know. Time to go teeth in my stuff like that. But to be right at any cost is to be wrong in every currency. Is to be wrong in every currency. And the church should not be a gathering of who's right. I have had experiences while I've been here in Australia over the 12 years where citizens now, so you're like stuck with us. You're stuck with us. I have had experiences here where the closest people to me in order to speak life spiritually into me were Baptists. It was a Baptist. The Lord said, go and see this person is going to speak life back into you. I went and sat down. This person spoke life back into me, helped me to make sense of where I was, helped me to make sense of why I was going through what I was going through. Don't make church a gathering of who's right, only who's willing. When is the right time to serve God? When he calls. Because look at the Bible. Who in the Bible was ever ready to serve God when God called them? Because God is always going to call at a time that's inconvenient for us. So allow your Christianity and this church to be about who's willing. The third thing that we know about church is this. Churches that have no impact in their community will have no relevance. So this is the Bidwill community, yeah? This area is called Bidwill. How many people live in Bidwill? All right, let's do an exercise. If you pass more than one Adventist church to get to Bidwill, raise your hand. All right, put your hands up. If you pass 2 Adventist churches to get to Bidwill, raise your hand. If you pass 3 Adventist churches to get to Bidwill, raise your hand. If you pass more than 5 Adventist churches to get to Bidwill, raise your hand. All right. So, how many people live one area over from Bidwill? All right then. So, how many churches, Adventist churches, are there in the area over that you live? None? All right. So, Bidwill is your closest Adventist church. Hey, nice. That means your church is the community. That means your church is the community. When you think about this whole community. What are there's Bidwill. What's the closest area to Bidwill? As it were, to the left of Bidwill. What would be the closest area? Oh, Drury, yeah, Mount Drury. What would be the closest area to the right of Bidwill? Shelby. What's it called? Shelby? Shelby? I thought you were saying Shaolin. I'm like, well, this ain't a kung fu movie. I thought you were saying Shaolin. I'm like, what? This ain't a kung fu movie, boy. Shelby, yeah? Shelby. Ah, Shelby. All right, nice. All right, so between Mount Drury, Shelby, and Bidwill. So this is you. This is you. Yeah, this is you. All right, so everyone's doing it like north, south, east, west. So Mount Drury, Shelby. What would be up this way? Edmonton? Edmonton?
Yeah.
All right. I thought you said Edmonton. Edmonton's a place in North London. I'm like, oh, well, there's an Edmonton here as well. And so what would be underneath here? You lot don't even care, do you? You're like, so you even cares what's underneath there, man. Plumpton. All right then, Plumpton. So that's you, and you're right in the centre. Churches that have no impact on their communities can't have relevance there. So you know what your area is. You know what your reach is. Beautiful. I love this. One of my favorite writers is a guy called Michael Eric Dyson. And he says this. He says, in this era of global relations, God may be outsourcing the pursuit of justice, truth, and goodness to those who aren't religious, but are willing to do the work. That's deep, isn't it? Brilliant Christian writer. In this era of global relations, God may be outsourcing the pursuit of justice, truth, and goodness to those who aren't religious, but they're willing to do the work. And so what does that mean? That simply means this, and this is the beauty for you all as well. In this area, in this community, where you're surrounded by all of these communities, God is using organizations, religious and non-religious, to do the work of the kingdom. Our prayer as local churches, wherever we find ourselves, is, Lord, show me what you're doing so that I can join you in what you're already doing. Because God is already working. God is already working. And then this is the other thing that we know. That global impact is now a local reality. What do I mean? You're live streaming this. Okay. Where are people watching?
It's weird, but the most people watching this is from America. It's weird.
Did you hear what I just said? I said global impact is a local reality. We're sitting in Bidwill and people are live streaming us in America. That means the church is always global, but our global reach always starts locally. Why? Because everybody has the whole world in their hands. Isn't it? Oh, sorry. I thought I was showing you business. Everybody has the whole world in their hand. When you have a phone, you have the whole world in your hand. So, that's church. Last one. What can we safely say we know about culture? Culture. So discuss amongst yourselves and we'll come back together. We're discussing culture. As in soccer? As in AFL? NRL? Soccer? Yeah, I played, yeah. I didn't like 11 aside. It was too big. I used to like 5. Siblings. I had my bigger brothers, all of them were good at football. I wanted a sport that I could be good at. You know what I mean? Are we ready? Okay, where are we going to start this time? Let's start with this group. Have you got all your answers in? No? You start with this one? Yes. All right, let's start with this. It's a culture. What do we know?
It's something that identifies us, and it's something from each culture is something. There's always something different, unique, and that every culture is different.
That's interesting. I always ask that question. Are all cultures the same? No. And everyone always says no. And I really wish that I had like at least 15 different cultures and countries and cultures in it. Because I would do an exercise with you that would show, pretty much as human beings throughout cultures, we're all the same. We're all the same. But we've been taught that all cultures are different. Because if you can teach that all cultures and all people are different, then you can teach that some cultures are greater than other cultures. And if you can teach that other cultures are greater than other cultures, then you can teach that the humans within those cultures are more superior and greater than the people in other cultures. And if you can do that, then you can justify anything that you do to people in what you deem to be lesser cultures. But that's a different workshop. Anyway, come on, go with this one. Oh, we've got a new spokesperson. You handed it over.
Hi everyone. So my group and I came up with belonging, identity, history, influence our thinking, shaping our values, and how we live our lives.
Ooh, that's beautiful. Belonging, identity, history. That's beautiful. Shapes how we see our lives, shapes how we tell our stories. That's the beautiful thing about the biblical story. The biblical story is written actually within a culture. It's written within a culture. It's written within Hebrew culture, but Hebrew culture exists within a wider culture, which is Afro-Asiatic culture. When I was at camp meeting a couple of weeks ago, WA, I was preaching and I was talking about the way we think about the Bible and the way we tell our stories in the Bible. And I said, you do know that there are no white people in the New Testament. I said, as a matter of fact, there are no white people in the New Testament or the Old Testament. There are just no Europeans in the Bible story, period. Christianity would eventually get to Europe. But in the biblical story is written in the Afro-Asiatic. Amongst black and brown people. It's a different story. And that's why the practices in the Bible have so much resonance with us. The practices of hospitality, the practices of story, the practices of oral traditions. Not just written traditions, but oral traditions. The practice of when somebody comes, you make them feel like they belong. Because it's culturally incumbent upon you. That is in the biblical narrative all the way through. But what happens is the East meets the West, and then the West begins to struggle with the East. And you constantly see that. Love the words that they use. Go on. But that's a different workshop. That's a difference. What did you get out of this group? Culture.
We think culture is something specific to a particular people and place and time. Culture is something we can learn and unlearn. Culture, according to someone says, a place to belong. Culture is identity. And another one, culture can be a barrier. Misinterpreted.
Yeah. If you grew up in my house, I'm a 65 baby. If you grew up in my house, you grew up any Caribbean house, whether they were Grenadian, whether they were Jamaican, Barbadian, Trinidadian, grew up in any Caribbean house. Those of us who were raised there, in my house, the food was Grenadian. You know what I mean? We ate Grenadian food. Which was, we ate all our greens, we ate banana, we ate plantain, green banana, we ate plantain, we ate yam, we ate dashi, all the way through our meats, all the way through our fishes. Our stories were Grenadian. The humor was Grenadian. The music, was Grenadian. But the moment we stepped outside our front door onto the street, I was West London from SW6. You better know I'm London born and I'm London bred. And you get back into your house. Two cultures constantly fighting to figure out how they have prominence and where they have place. Your children go through that all the time. In your house, their food is tongan, isn't it? The stories, the humor, the music, the celebration. But as soon as they step out here into Western Sydney, West Side or whatever. Yeah. They're from Western Sydney, I'm from the inner West. Two cultures constantly figuring out how. And you can't eradicate one and only have the other. And you can't only have one without the other, because there are two constantly moving in. And that's the beauty of it. And that's the struggle of it. That's the struggle of it. One more group. Oh, you thought you was getting away, didn't you? Over there. Oh, he's forgotten us. That's good. No.
We said culture shapes who we are. Culture is rich, culture is diverse, and culture is rooted in our beliefs and traditions.
Rooted in beliefs and traditions. Are all traditions bad? Are all traditions good? No. Yeah, all traditions aren't good, but all traditions aren't bad. We just haven't figured out how we make the traditions work within a certain place. So having the principle that governs that tradition and thinking about how the practice of that tradition changes and evolves while the principle remains. Bob Dylan in 1963 sang, "For times are a-changing." And then in 2000, Bob Dylan said, "Times have changed." And that's the one thing that we do know with culture. Culture is constantly evolving. Constantly evolving. And the one thing, sorry, I'm going to use your phone again. Can I use it? The one thing that this has done is this has brought different cultures together. The danger with this, though, is me thinking that I know everything about Tongan people because I follow so-and-so on TikTok. But you can't know a person until you sit down with a person. I can't know who a Tongan person is unless I come in a Tongan person's house and eat food and listen to the stories and see the pictures on the wall and listen to the culture, and you come in my house and know what a Caribbean house mixed with London is like. We can't know. But the beauty of living in a diverse space is that we get to know. So what do we know about culture? What do we know? Oh, hey! I don't know what I did and why I did it. Technology. Oh, there it is. Yeah. So what do we know about culture? Can you get off the page, please? Yeah, thank you. We know this, that in culture, in culture, listen, the strongest argument no longer wins the day. I know as a church we go, well, if you have a stronger argument and a stronger reason why the Sabbath is the day and a stronger reason why we believe what we believe, then you'll win. But we live in an information age. Remember this. You can win the argument about the Sabbath, but lose the person you're trying to convince of the Sabbath. Yeah, you can win the argument with the Pentecostal, but you've lost the person. Because the strongest argument no longer wins the day. Why? Because God has made it, and is making it, that her life has to get close enough to my life to do this, so that she can see in my life, as it were, the beauty of rest. She can, why? Because she already knows God. Well, you're telling me because she goes to church on Sunday, she don't know Jesus? Come on, man. She already knows Jesus. And what if she doesn't know Jesus? She's been around enough Christians to know when somebody is being genuinely Christian and genuinely fake. And that's the beauty of having non-Christian friends. That's why I keep non-Christian friends around me. Oh, I do. Believe me. I've got non-Christian friends come up in my house and eat my food. And who are close to me. Why? Because they can keep you honest. Sometimes they keep you more honest than the Christian friends. The Christian friends will go home and gossip about your no, sorry. Share your business in a prayer request. Christians, we don't gossip. We just share your news in a prayer, on a WhatsApp prayer group. Pray for Pastor Ed. The strongest argument no longer wins the day. This is the other thing that we know. In an alternative truth culture, you hear this idea of fake news. Oh, that's fake news, fake news. What is fake news? Tell me what fake news is. What is it? What does fake news mean? Fake news means lies. When people use the term fake news, why do they use it? In what context do they use it? Because they don't believe. But they use fake news as an idea of, what do they say? They'll say it's alternative facts. They'll say alternative facts. What is an alternative fact? You know why you're finding it hard to explain it? Because it's too hard to explain. She says to me that if I jump off of a building, gravity will pull me to the ground and break my ankles and break my body. I say, well, I have alternative facts. She says, okay. Yeah, go prove it. An alternative facts and this idea of alternative truth comes about when people don't want to face the truth of how they behave, the truth of how they are, the truth of what they're doing. When they don't want to face it, they say, well, that's fake news, or I've got an alternative to that. But the alternative is really denialism. And in this type of culture, what is really indispensable is live truth. Allow people to get close to your lives. But you say that my life is messy. You know, sometimes when pastor comes round, have you ever had when pastor comes round, the pastor ain't told you that she's coming round, and then she'll turn up and she'll knock on the door and pastor's there. And you ain't going to say, pastor, well, pastor, you can't come in. You know what I mean? You're going to, hey, pastor! You know what I mean? And you say it loud enough so that the room that is a bomb site right now, you know that somebody's going to go through that room and just, and all of a sudden that room that was just a bomb site is just, and you throw everything in that one room and just close the door. And we don't want people to get close to our lives because we don't want our lives, people to see that our lives are cluttered. They don't need to look in every single room in our house, the house of our heart. Sometimes you can push that thing, push it into a room. But allow people to get close enough so that they can see in your lived experience that your life is rich. Number 3. Story is everything that data and stats cannot be. And that's why we share stories. People that have statistics. I never made it through regular school. In year 9, at the beginning of year 9, I used to get in trouble a lot in school. I used to get suspended a lot in school. In year 9, my mother sat with me in front of an educational psychologist. Educational psychologist looked at my mother and said, Mrs. Hippolyte, the problem with Eddie is that he's uneducatable. That's what they said. I lasted about 6 weeks of year 9, and then they permanently excluded me from regular mainstream education. I ended up in a pupil referral unit, and then I ended up in a community homeschool. The court system took me out of my house, and they put me in a community homeschool, and I was there for 2.5 years. Come home at the weekends. The statistics that I grew up with, there were 2 groups of boys that were publicly being weeded out of the education system. Young black British boys like myself, first generation Caribbean boys, and young white Irish boys. They were weeding us out of the education system. The deep thing was, the school that I ended up in the workshop of a white man called Cliff German, an engineering teacher. Just started at the school actually. When I got to there, he had just started at the school 2 months before. You know, the white man from out the east end of London. He said, listen, I'm not going to treat you lot like criminals. I'm only going to treat you like boys who've made silly mistakes. But if you act like a criminal, I'm going to treat you like a criminal. All right? I'm like, yes, sir, cool. And he was the one that made me understand the level of my intelligence. There's always 4 educators that are credited with having the greatest impact on my life. And Cliff German was the first one. Stayed in my life. Even after I left school, I lost contact with him, found him again in my 20s, stayed in my life until he passed of cancer about 15 years ago. About 15, 16 years ago. And that's why it's important that we understand that even when we become statistics, somebody's statistic, story is the deepest thing that we can share. Story is the deepest thing that we can share. It's interesting. I had breakfast about 2 weeks ago. You know, Yvonne and I, Sonia and I, we had breakfast together, and we was discussing raising our kids. And I remember them saying we took our kids back to Tonga with us, and we showed our kids where we came from, and we showed them where we lived and how we grew. When they got back, they said, like, we're really grateful. Why? Because no matter how much you tell, when people can see the lived story, they understand the lived person in a greater way. And you say sometimes, well, my life is messy. All of our lives are messy. But the truth is this, in the culture, story is everything that data cannot be. Think about social media. What was social media? Because now it's become messy. But when social media first started, what was social media about? Social media was simply the culture's attempt to create spaces of transparency and authenticity via the sharing of life and story, wasn't it? That's what it was about originally. Facebook, MySpace before Facebook. Yeah. Who had a MySpace? MySpace, Facebook, what have I missed? And then obviously, then Instagram came and you shared it through pictures, and then TikTok, shorter and shorter. But what is the culture trying to do? The culture is trying to find out what's going on in people's lives. Does your life act the same way as my life? So the fourth thing about culture is this. Culture is only perceived as being relevant to culture. God, is only perceived as being relevant when he's experienced as being present within the culture. I tell stories of being on the run from police. I tell them all the time. Being on the run from police. Being locked up in police and getting away. Being locked up in police stations. And then when I'm in the cell, I had this get out of free jail card. Pray. I pray this bad boy prayer every time, Pastor, I'm getting released. And this was the prayer. Jesus, if Mum finds out that I'm in jail, it's going to kill her. If I like, blah, 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 all right, you can go. Lock up, Jesus. Until one day I was in jail, up in the police station, and I pulled out the prayer. Jesus. If Mum finds out that I'm in jail, it's going to kill her. And you know what Jesus said to me? Well, if she dies, she dies. Because she's my child, not yours. He said that as clear in my ears as I'm talking to you now. And you know what I did? But Jesus, I'm sorry, Yeah, he made me pray a real prayer that time. But this is the one thing that I did know. And this is the one thing that you all know. Because you sense it. And you see it. And you hear it. You know that God is perceived as being in the culture. You may talk to people and they're like, well, I don't really believe in God, but boy, there was this time when. This thing happened to me the other day, and I tell you, the man upstairs, somebody's praying for. Come on, you've ever heard somebody say that? Yeah. Oh, I'm telling you. I'm not a person who believes in prayer, but listen, I was in this situation, and I'm telling you, the man upstairs, somebody was praying for me. When God is perceived as being in the culture, then he is perceived as being relevant. The church's calling is not to be relevant. I know you're going to hear that, and they're probably hearing that in these evangelistic training that they're doing now. Listen to me when I tell you, the church's calling is not to be relevant. The church's calling is to be present. Present. Now, let me show you how that works. I'm going to show you how that works. Adam and Eve sinned. Yeah? When God comes to them, what did they do? Why are they hiding? Because they're naked. Because they sinned. Why else? Because they're ashamed. They're afraid. What did you say? And because sin made them hide. So God comes to them to be relevant. Is God being relevant? No, because they're hiding. God is irrelevant to their condition. But it goes like this. Why are you hiding? Oh, why are you afraid? Did you do what I told you not to do? Did you break it? Yes. Can you fix it? We tried, but it can't fix. Do you want me to fix it? Please. That's why at the end of Genesis chapter 2, Genesis chapter 2 says, and God covered them. So this is what God does. Think about it. They've sinned and they're separated from God now. They're hiding. They're afraid. God comes and they're afraid, so they hide. So God's presence is not relevant to them. God has wearing his hair is not relevant to them. But once God comes to be present with them, and then he allows his presence to help them figure out God's relevance to their condition. Why? Because they still have to choose to be covered. Don't they? God can't force the covering on them. They have to choose to be covered, choose to be forgiven, choose to be taken back in. And so the church's calling is not to be relevant. Why? Because sin already makes us an irrelevance. Sin already separates us from the common man out there. But when we come to be present in their life, is this making sense to you? Because they still have to choose. We can't force salvation on them, but we can show them the love of God. We can show them the presence of God. We can show them the goodness of God. We can show them the patience of God. But they still have to choose. But what happens if they don't choose? Then they don't choose. But you're telling me because they're not going to choose, you're not going to love them. Because they're not going to choose, you're not going to help them. Because they're not going to choose God, you're not going to feed them. No, man. The call of the church is to come and be present. And then allow them to work out the relevance of the church. And you think about God. I remember I was in a dance one time, running from Jesus. This was about a year before I came back. I'm in a dance, just nice, sweet reggae music playing. I'm just in this dance, enjoying myself. Just in the dark, hiding. And then they switch on the lights in this hall, big hall like this. And I'm like, oh, child, man. You know, when the lights come on and you just, I'm not talking to you, it's the other people. You know, when the lights come on and you're just like, And then the DJ said, oh, play this big tune. A big tune from a man called Sanchez. Big tune from Sanchez. And then he put on this reggae track, Sanchez. And what was Sanchez, the reggae singer, singing? Amazing grace will always be my song of praise. For it was grace that bought my liberty. I'll never know just why Christ came to love me so. Listen, by the time you got to that part, I had to turn to the wall. Because tears were in my eyes. I'm like, in this big old dance. In this big old dance. About a year after that, I was back with Christ again at 25. But where was God? God was in the culture, chasing me. God wasn't waiting outside the dance. Yeah, I know some of you grew up with the evangelists. There are places where even the Spirit of God does not go, and you put yourself in them. You know, the evangelists just want to listen, man. If there is a place that the Spirit of God cannot go, that place don't exist. God goes everywhere. Everywhere. So God is reintroducing himself ahead of all of us in every paradigm shift and cultural swing. And what is God doing? God is trying to make the world smaller The world is being made smaller by God in order to make himself both bigger and more accessible in us. So God, church, and culture. And here's the thing. What is God's response? We've talked about God, we've talked about church, we've talked about culture. Well, the response of God is a person. Who is that person? Yeah, Jesus. The response of God, church, and culture is Jesus. So Jesus in God. First, Jesus in God, what we see is surrender. Surrender. And how does surrender look in the life of Jesus? Jesus follows the will and heart of his Father, and the kingdom is lived out in his daily experience. The struggle for us as Christians is not conversion. Conversion means our attention is drawn to God. Our struggle is surrender. And what does surrender mean? Switch your camera on. I want you to record this. Record the sound. Surrender simply means we stop fighting God, where God is trying to pull us from, lead us to, or grow us in. That's what surrender means, exactly. Wherever God is trying to lead us from, guide us to, or grow us in our individual lives, we stop fighting him. That's what surrender is. And that's the struggle of the Christian. You should surrender, allowing God space. But in the life of Jesus, Jesus in God, we see the life of surrender. And then Jesus within the church, what do we see? We see interdependence. One independent person. Two independent persons. And the life of the Christian before Jesus is independence. But the life of the Christian after Jesus is interdependence. Interdependence. So wherever you go, walk up. We walk with you. And wherever you go, walk up. We walk with you. Interdependence. Jesus says, I am the vine, thank you boys. I am the vine, you are the branches. Can the branches exist without the vine? No. Can the vine exist without the branches? Yes. But does the vine choose to exist without the branches? No. The vine makes it clear, yeah, the life is in me, but I choose not to have this life in me unless the life is in you too. And so that's what we see in Jesus. Jesus creates in himself a new humanity, and that's what the church is. In Ephesians, Paul says Jesus has taken Jew and Gentile, pulled them into himself, and created a new humanity. And that's what we are. Messy and as troubled as we are, but we represent a new humanity. We're not better than anyone else. We're just living in a different reality. I remember, it wasn't that funeral, it was another funeral. It wasn't the funeral of my friend who got murdered. Actually, at the funeral of my friend who got murdered, we're standing around now. This is at the reception. Everyone's standing around, and he's in the hall, and then the rest of us are outside on the grass. And there must have been about 20 of us. All of us who went to high school, the one that I got expelled from, everyone was at, we was all chatting. So anyway, I'm up here, we're all having a little drink, soft drink. Everyone drinking. Hey, you're doing that too, Tim. Put your drinks down now. What's in your cup? Anyway, no. We're all drinking. So one of the guys goes, boy, Eddie, I believe that you're a pastor now, because in school you were bad, I'm like, no man, I wasn't that bad. So the other one goes, no, Eddie, you were bad in school. Trust me, you will like it. Oh no, it wasn't that bad. So I turned to the whole group. I said, hey, everyone, was I really that bad in school? To a person, everyone went, yes! And then everyone cracked up laughing. Then the first one who said, you know, about this, he said, but hey, trust me, if it's good, because if you can be a Christian, that means any of us can be a Christian. So that's what I'm talking about. It doesn't mean that I'm better than anyone else. But Paul says that when Christ is in us, we become a new humanity. So people can see in us something that they want. And the true power of community will be seen in how they live in relation to each other. And then Jesus in culture. Jesus in church is interdependence. Jesus in culture is other-centeredness. Other-centeredness. Jesus redefines the value of humanity through the ministry of service, healing, and presence. So, what are the things that we know? This is what we know. To intentionally follow Jesus, and that's about surrender. Now, believe me when I tell you, I'm landing the plane now. I'm landing the plane. Believe me when I tell you, yeah? I know there ain't nothing easy about surrender. There is. I remember when for a lot of my ministry, I was a pastor for 18 years. 8 years ago, I stepped out of pastoring because I wanted to serve the church and serve the culture in ways that being employed in church wasn't going to allow me, and the church wasn't making space, and so I better serve the church where I am. I remember seasons of being, and so for most of my ministry, for at least half of my ministry, I have been declared a preacher of low and no substance. Eddie Hipplat is a preacher of low and no substance. And the reason why they say I'm a preacher of low and no substance is they say you speak too much about love and you speak too much about Jesus. You know, you have to speak about the deeper things. You're an Adventist. You have to speak about the deeper things. And not just loving Jesus. It sounds like a Sunday preacher. You know, I think I'm educated. I hope I'm educated. Educated enough to know that if you take Jesus and you take the Bible and you take love out of the Bible, there ain't nothing left to preach. If you take Jesus and love out of Adventism, you have nothing left to preach. Take Jesus out of the sanctuary, do you have a sanctuary? Take Jesus out of the second coming, do you have a second coming? Take Jesus out of the state of the dead, do you have a state of the dead? Take Jesus out of righteousness by faith, do you have a righteousness by faith? Take Jesus out of the health message, do you have a health message? You take Jesus out of anything. So we don't preach Jesus in relation to none. We preach everything in relation to Jesus. Jesus is the sieve that we pour everything into. And if we can go through the sieve of Jesus, we cook with it. We preach with it. We live it. We hold our hands open for it. Thank you. But if it comes, and so I do know, there have been times when I said to the Lord, I need to stop preaching this love thing. It's hard. It's too hard. This love, please, it's hard. Let me go back to the easy stuff. You don't know who Eddie Hippolyte is. I came into this faith at 17 years old. I read myself into Adventism. You chat about Jesuits and Freemasons. Listen, you can come to my house. I can show you books in my library. I am the original Black Pope Jesuit Alberto Rivera, Chick Publications. See, I'm mentioning people you don't even know what I'm talking about. This is the original. You see that? I'm not even. I'm saying it in a straight Jamaican accent now. Original. See when my face is twisted up? But that stuff is easy. I can preach popes all day. I can preach beasts all day. I can preach conspiracies all day. No one knows no conspiracies than me. Serious. I know the conspiracies that you've forgotten. What is that? The hardest thing I've ever had to preach is the love of Jesus and Him crucified. Why? Because Jesus and His love takes you further than you want to go, makes you dig deeper than you want to dig, makes you stay longer than you want to stay, stretches you further than you want to stretch. The closer you get to Jesus is the less of you see of yourself. And as human beings, we always want to be in control, don't we? We don't want to feel like we're losing control. And so when Jesus telling me to go and apologize to members that have harmed me, and I'm like, but they harmed me. You're the pastor, don't apologize. But no, Lord, I'm not in the wrong. I know you're not in the wrong, but you go and apologize. I don't even know what I'm apologizing for. You go and apologize. That's the journey of love and the journey of surrender. Until I got to their house and they were sleeping. And I knocked on the door. And I said, look, I've just come to say sorry. And they're like, no, Eddie, no, please, come in. When I got in, they said, no, it's not your fault. You know it's not your fault. It's my fault. But they were afraid to apologize to me because the last time that they was in a situation like this and they went and apologized, the person took their apology, crumpled it up and just threw it back in their face. And so ever since then they've been afraid. But the Lord said to me, you go and apologize, even though I wasn't in the wrong. Because my apology seemed to build a bridge to get them back to their own humanity and their hearts. So that's why I said there ain't nothing easy sometimes about being a follower of Jesus. But there's everything glorious about being a follower of Jesus. This is what we know, to intentionally follow Jesus in surrender. To intentionally live in a community empowered by love, which is interdependence. And to selflessly serve humanity as God and where God gives opportunity, which is other-centeredness. We do know that this is the heart of life. Those are the things we know. We know, Bidwill, that as a community, if you choose to intentionally follow Jesus and be a community of surrender, if you intentionally live in a community empowered by love, and I say love because love is the hardest thing. You know that love is the biggest giving of yourselves. It's the deepest giving of yourself. You cannot be forced to love someone. You can be forced to hate someone, but not love. Love has to be intentionally chosen and given. You can say, yeah, I love you, but in the privacy of your heart and mind, I don't love you, I can never love you. But in your mouth, oh yeah, you know I love you. That's why the ability to choose to love is as sacred to God as the ability to choose itself. I do know, people, that to intentionally live in a community empowered by love, and to selflessly serve humanity as and where God gives you opportunity, which is other sentiments. That if you're a community of surrender, interdependence, and other sentiments, you will be living at the heart of faith and life. Even organizations that are not religious live under these three principles. That they're seeking to attach themselves to something bigger than themselves. They're seeking to be more about community than individual. They're seeking to serve other people other than themselves. But we are in the kingdom, and this is what the kingdom is calling us to. And those are the things we know. Those are the things we know. We got there in the end. I'm going to leave space just for a couple of questions, if you have them. Anything that troubled you from anything that I've said. If you've got a problem with anything that I've said, please pray and talk to Jesus about it. But anything else, pray about it and talk to Jesus, man. I ain't here for that. But if you've got any questions from anything that we've discussed this afternoon, please feel free. But we'll only take a few minutes. All right, thank you, family. Let's say a word of prayer, and we'll finish. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you that you call us to a life of surrender. Thank you that you call us to a life of other sentiments. Thank you, Father, that you call us to a life of service. We ask, Father, that you will bless us, affirm us, empower us, and help us to be like you want us to be. In Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you for being here for listening to the whole day. I want to extend massive thank you. Thank you on behalf of our personal ministry. And I'm sure our pastor will meet. Thank you on behalf of you. Thank you very much for your time for the whole day and up to now and all the message that you have shared with us. And I'm sure that all of us will take it in their own way differently. And thank God that He has given us the power of choice. Everybody have their own church, whether it's for the goodness of being taking life, but God has given us. And not only that, but as we said, the things we know. I thought I learned somewhere, somebody used to sometimes you know, but you don't know. It's something we know. But anyway, thank you very much. I know that East comes all the way from Nani and Namania is from Puerto. And I heard our pastor say that so many staff members from SDA conference, it stays away at Puerto. And I'm sure it will be, other things will be on the way. And thank you for your time, your dear wife, and your girls to be here. I know it's not easy to hop on the freeway and be here in an hour or 2 hours. But thank you very much for making it possible for all of us to take what's good for the church. And I'm sure somebody will say being a church, sometimes they go into the building, but today you have told us about the church. And lastly, I know that if we don't have Jesus in our heart, then it's nothing. But thank you for your time, for your wife, and all of us, all of you who will stay there and listen to for a whole day. And thank you very much. And you know where Bidwill is, and if you call you again, you know that this is the place where you will pray. And I'm sure this won't be the first and the last for us to call him. But if we call again, please be here. Thank you very much for everything. Hope you have a nice trip back to Kurenbong, and I'm sure we'll be following you to Kurenbong. But anyway, from our kita kalau dia mau meamahi aku ini, kita weekend kita tadi kita tahu yang mari di sana, mau pulang kita di aku ini, ane hai tahu mai tahu dia terus. Thank you.